Discover the incredible journey of a legendary rancher defeated by love, a transformative tale. Jack Miller stood on the sprawling expanse of his ranch, the morning sun painted in hues of orange and gold spilling across the undulating hills of Montana. This land, passed down through generations, whispered tales of resilience. Yet beneath that strong exterior, Jack felt the weight of economic pressures pressing down like a hard winter frost. With every waking day, he fought. The elements, the county meetings, and his own sense of purpose were all beginning to blur. The uncertainty gnawed at him. Tradition held tight, but modernization was creeping closer, waiting to dismantle the life he had known. His heart raced as he navigated a local county meeting about land use regulations. That's where he first met Lily, the ambitious attorney from Billings. There was an air about her that captivated him. Confident, challenging, and unafraid to confront the age-old beliefs Jack held dear. They clashed like thunder against lightning. Their debates spiraled from land use to the very essence of what it meant to be rooted in tradition. Jack fought to retain his sense of worth, the familiar voice of his ancestors echoing in his mind. Protect the land, Jack. But Lily's fiery passion ignited something within him, shaking the foundations of his beliefs. Was it too late for him to awaken a world beyond the ranch? He often lay in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the looming specter of what the future might hold. The connection he felt with Lily was undeniable. Her laughter found cracks in his weary facade. Yet here he was, tethered to the very ground he walked on, grappling with impossible choices. It felt selfish, an impossible tug-of-war between his heart and his heritage. The thought of abandoning everything he knew sent his mind spiraling. How could he justify the decision? What would his ancestors think? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But the pressure mounted. An aggressive rival rancher had begun encroaching on his land and resources, plotting to dismantle the Miller legacy. Each stolen moment felt like a knock against his pride, further intensifying his internal struggle. Jack's fists clenched tight, holding onto the history and pride of his name, while also wrestling with the enchantment Lily cast over him. Could he reconcile his expanding dreams with the fear of losing what he considered sacred? The winds howled outside that evening, a tempest mirroring the storm within. He had fallen into despair when he discovered an old trunk in the barn, filled with letters and photographs, unspoken battles and triumphs of his ancestors. Their stories of resilience ignited a fire within him, stirring a determination he had long buried. But even as inspiration flickered, doubt crept back in. Would he sacrifice his family's legacy for a chance at love? Would it be folly? As the cold winds whipped through the barn, Jack's heart pounded with uncertainty. He was standing at the brink of two opposing identities, one rooted deep in the earth, the other yearning for more than he ever imagined. He faced the horizon, an aching question echoing in his heart. Could love rewrite the script of his life, or would it cost him everything he had ever known? Dawn broke over the ranch, not with warmth, but with a biting chill that matched Jack's resolve. The currents of indecision swirled through him like the fog that dipped low over the rolling hills. Each morning, he could hear the land stirring to life beneath the frost, an unmistakable reminder that change was both inescapable and vital for survival. The sight of the worn barn, weathered but steadfast, seemed to bear witness to his dilemma, urging him to confront the choices that lay ahead. Driven by a newfound determination, Jack strode out to the fields. He had decided there would be no retreat. On this day, he would prepare to not only defend his ranch against his encroaching rival, but also to confront the feelings that tangled within his heart. He grabbed the reins of his horse, feeling the familiar heft that had once anchored him to heritage. Yet, it was a double-edged sword, tethering him to a life that felt increasingly constricted. As he rode through the vast expanse of his land, Jack questioned whether he could hold on to the past while reaching for a future that involved someone like Lily. She represented possibility, a different approach to existence that blurred the lines between tradition and innovation. The sunlight glinted off the grasslands, igniting stubborn thoughts of collaborating with her, perhaps even reinventing the ranch in a way that held both past and future together. He recalled their heated discussions, the laughter that seemed to transform the mundane into possibilities. But with each passing moment, the reality of his rival's encroachment weighed heavier on him. This struggle was not merely about land. It was a battle between two visions of life. Jack needed to stake a claim for himself, not just as a rancher, but as a modern man capable of navigating the complexities of love and ambition. At the water trough, he found himself lost in thought. The crisp air reminded him of the letters in the trunk, the legacies of his forebears. They had fought so hard against odds he could barely fathom. An idea took root. What if he could not only defend his ranch, but also innovate its legacy through collaboration with Lily? The words danced in his mind like wild horses, pushing him to create an alliance that could marry tradition with progress. Determination surged within him, replacing uncertainty with purpose. Jack began to sketch plans in the dirt, visualizing how the ranch could not only survive but thrive amid change. His resolve hardening, he imagined working alongside Lily, not as adversaries but as allies. This union could reinvent everything. That evening, as shadows lengthened over the ranch, Jack stood at the edge of his property, surveying the horizon. The warmth of possibilities unfurled inside him. He was ready to confront his rival, and more importantly, to reach out to Lily. But what would that first step toward collaboration entail? Was he prepared to reveal vulnerabilities he had long buried? The thought of approaching Lily felt electric, but it also ignited fear. With the path ahead unfolding like a winding trail, Jack hovered at the brink of his future, sensing the tension building within him. He took a deep breath, the coolness of the air sharpening his focus. Tomorrow would demand courage. He had to decide whether to challenge his past or embrace the unknown. The time had indeed come for confrontation, but not just with his rival. The greater battle lay within. Would he truly step forward into a venture so fraught with risk, or would he retreat into the comfort of his inherited legacy? The sun rose more defiantly this morning, casting a golden hue over the ranch that mirrored Jack's internal transformation. The biting chill had given way to a crisp clarity, dispelling some of the fog that had clouded his thoughts. He stood in the barn, surrounded by the familiar scent of hay and leather, but for the first time, he viewed it as a launching point rather than a cage. Jack's mind swirled with visions of the collaboration he had contemplated with Lily. It felt exhilarating yet terrifying, filled with both potential and peril. What if he reached out to her and she rejected him? The risk of exposing himself made his stomach twist. Yet as he glanced around at the tools of his trade, memories of his ancestors warring against nature and circumstance surged within him. They had faced bigger challenges. Wasn't he capable of confronting this one? He reached for a hammer, its weight grounding him as he considered the first step in his strategy. He would not simply defend against his rival, he would fortify his own vision, melding the past with the future. As he worked on maintaining the barn, he realized that building structure and stability was not only a physical endeavor, it mirrored the emotional architecture he needed to construct with Lily. Each swing of the hammer was deliberate, akin to carving a path toward understanding and partnership. As the day wore on, every swing brought clarity. He recognized he had skills that extended beyond the physical. Negotiation, creativity, and empathy had been stifled in the pursuit of tradition, but now they began to resurface. Those discussions with Lily flashed back, the way they had bounced ideas off each other, creating waves of inspiration. He needed to rekindle that dynamic, to communicate how her innovations could integrate with his lineage. The sound of hooves galloping in the distance interrupted his reverie. Jack's heart raced as he momentarily thought it was his rival making an aggressive approach, but it was only the horizon beckoning him toward his choices. He could not afford to let fear govern his actions, nor allow what was in the past to impede what could be. If he was to confront Lily, he had to ensure she not only heard his words, but understood his heart. That evening, a pulsating tension hung in the air as Jack cleaned up after his long day. The prospect of speaking with Lily weighed heavily on him, an anchor and a launch pad both at once. He imagined the words that would spill out, words laden with his hopes and fears. Would she see the vision he was constructing in his heart? Would she be willing to envision that future alongside him? In the stillness of twilight, Jack stood again on the edge of his property, the cool breeze brushing against his skin like a gentle prod. The shadows of impending choices loomed as immense as the mountains in the distance. He knew the conversation ahead would be fraught with difficulty. Would he be able to articulate the depth of his beliefs, both for the land and for her? No more indecision. It was time to act. With a deep breath, he turned toward the starlit path leading to town, with the flickering hope of reaching Lily echoing with every step. But as he walked, a lingering question taunted him. Would his willingness to build a bridge with her be enough to withstand the looming threat from his rival? Could collaboration truly be possible against the backdrop of confrontation? The answers seemed just beyond reach, germinating beneath the crisp soil of possibility as Jack ventured into the unknown. Jack's footsteps echoed on the empty street, each step a rhythmic reminder of the stakes at hand. The familiar sights of town, the old diner, the shuttered general store, felt like fragmented pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that no longer fit together. As he drew closer to Lily's workshop, the gravity of his decision weighed upon him, threatening to pull him back into the safety of what he knew. But he pressed on, feeling the pulse of determination within him. This wasn't merely about a partnership, it was a manifestation of everything he had fought to embrace, merging his heritage with modern innovation. Lily had always understood this dance of balance, how to adapt without losing integrity. Yet now he felt vulnerable, stripped of the armor his family's legacy had provided. When he reached the door to her workshop, Jack hesitated. His heart raced as phrases he had rehearsed faded into meaningless fragments. Would she laugh at him? Would she brush aside his vulnerable ambitions like dust from old shelves? He closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself. He had a vision. It was time to share it. Taking a deep breath, he knocked firmly but gently. The sound felt both ominous and hopeful. He could hear metal clinking, accompanied by the soft scrape of her boot against the floorboards. The door creaked open, and there stood Lily, illuminated by the warm glow of light behind her, the flicker casting playful shadows upon her face. "Jack," she said, her brows furrowing in surprise. "What brings you here? Can we talk?" His voice was steadier than his insides felt. "Of course." She stepped aside, allowing him entry, but her eyes were watchful, curious. Jack felt her scrutiny, greatly aware of the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Inside, the smell of sawdust and paint swirled together, awakening distant memories of afternoons spent tinkering alongside his father. He swallowed hard, struggling against the tide of nostalgia threatening to wash away his resolve. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "About the ranch, about us." Lily's expression softened, though uncertainty lingered in her gaze. "What do you mean?" "I can't keep fighting what's coming. Instead, I want to find a way to work with it. You have ideas that could transform everything we know about ranching, about our futures. I'd like to explore a partnership." A flicker of surprise crossed Lily's face, but Jack could see her processing, weighing the idea with that fierce intellect he had admired since they first met. Yet his expectations trembled at the edges, fearing rejection in its form. "And what about your rival? What if he sees this as you altering the very foundations of your family's legacy?" Her tone was serious, probing. "That's exactly it," Jack admitted, urgency creeping into his words. "I can't let fear dictate my choices any longer. I want to redefine what that legacy means, not just for me, but for everyone connected to this land. If we work together, we can change the game." For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them, the weight of Jack's confession ushering in 1,000 possibilities. But doubt lingered like a stubborn cloud, thick and heavy. Lily stepped back, absorbing his words. "It won't be easy, Jack. There are risks involved, not just with your rival, but within the community too. You'll face resistance." Jack held her gaze, drawn into the essence of her challenge. "I'm willing to face them if you are." As the words hung between them, an unsteady bridge formed, connecting their ambitions with unspoken fears. Jack realized that the easy part had been stating his intention. The hard work lay ahead, conjuring a future that skillfully wove together both their visions. "Then I suggest we get started," she finally replied, a hint of a smile breaking through her concerns. But just as relief washed over him, Jack remembered the looming threat of his rival, now more imminent than ever. Later, as he left the workshop, uncertainty coiled in his gut. Would their joint aspirations shine against the darkening shadows of competition? And what lengths would his rival go to thwart them? The path forward bristled with wild possibilities, leaving Jack with an electrifying question echoing softly in the recesses of his mind. Could the power of collaboration truly shield them from the storm that was brewing just over the horizon? Jack's drive back to the ranch consumed him with a whirlwind of thoughts. Each bump in the road felt like a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead, carving grooves of uncertainty into his resolve. The crisp air filtered through the open window, failing to invigorate him the way it usually did. Instead, it only amplified the undeniable tension brewing within. What had he set in motion? This partnership with Lily was his first step away from the life he had always known, but it felt as precarious as a foal taking its first steps. As he navigated the turns with the same precision he learned from his father, Jack pondered whether he even knew what his legacy truly meant. Was it only about preserving traditions, or should it evolve to meet the demands of an ever-changing world? Arriving at the ranch, the familiar structures loomed large before him, tainted by an unfamiliar vision of the future. The barn that had hosted so many memories was now a battleground for new ideas. How would his father have responded to the thought of modernizing what they had built over generations? Would he view it as a betrayal or a brave new frontier? Jack felt the weight of his father's expectations bearing down upon him. The last thing he wanted was to be perceived as weak or indecisive, traits that would invite judgment, especially from his rival. Speaking of which, the specter of his competitor loomed even larger now, a shadow ready to pounce. What if he caught wind of the partnership? Jack's clenched fist on the steering wheel mirrored the tightening knots of fear in his stomach. The idea of hosting a community meeting to discuss this newfound vision felt monumental, a risk with the potential for both support and backlash. Would those he had grown up with welcome the idea, or would they see him as the prodigal son, returning only to dismantle their tradition? That evening, with the sun dipping below the horizon and the ranch bathed in a deep orange glow, Jack sat in his old easy chair, surrendering to the exhaustion that had begun to weigh on him. The possibilities danced before him like fireflies, fleeting and beautiful, yet indistinct. With Lily at his side, he could harness creativity and innovation to breathe new life into the ranch. He could lead it into the future while respecting the roots that shaped him. But then, the nagging voice in his head returned, filled with doubt and apprehension. It questioned his ability to forge this path, to stand against both family and rival, willing to embrace the storm that approached. Every time he thought of the potential backlash, he wrestled with a familiar fear. What if his efforts proved futile? Hours stretched like the horizon before him, too quiet and dark to find solace. He had to act. Tomorrow, he would meet with Lily. Together, they could conduct a thorough evaluation of his plans, not just the risks, but also the strategies that could shield them from failure. As sleep threatened to take him, Jack clenched his jaw, steeling himself for the next step. This would not simply be about change. This would be about courage, alignment of dreams, and the relentless pursuit of a future he envisioned, one where legacy and innovation could coexist. Little did he know that in committing to this adventure, what Jack would discover about himself would challenge his very definition of strength. The next morning, he awoke with a fire ignited in his spirit. But unbeknownst to him, a figure watched from afar, plotting the next move in this game of risk and reward, ready to challenge Jack's aspirations, forcing him to confront the fundamental question. Could he withstand the inevitable storm that approached? Jack stood in front of the mirror. The reflection staring back at him felt like a stranger. The early morning light poured through the window, casting long shadows that flickered across his face, accentuating the furrow in his brow. An unexpected blend of anxiety and determination coursed through him as he prepared to meet Lily. He ran a hand through his hair, taking a deep breath. Today marked the beginning of a different kind of fight, one that required more than just grit and an unwillingness to retreat. The drive to Lily's place was punctuated by a palpable tension. His pulse raced with every beat. What if she doubted his vision? What if she questioned his commitment? Navigating these uncertainties became an exercise in mental fortitude. He replayed the conversations they had shared, the laughter that indicated a shared vision infused with creativity. Yet doubts lurked in the corners of his mind like shadows stretching toward twilight. Pulling up to her ranch, Jack noticed the vibrant bursts of color around her farm, flowers blooming defiantly in the morning sun, symbols of resilience. It stirred something within him, an awakening to possibilities. He stepped out of his truck, the gravel crunching beneath his boots echoing the weight of his thoughts. The bold colors contrasted sharply with his inner turmoil. Every step he took felt both like an advance and a struggle. "Hey, you made it!" Lily's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts. She stood at the entrance, framed by the sunlight, with an easy smile and an energy that radiated optimism. Jack couldn't help but smile back, the warmth of her presence soothing the frayed edges of his resolve. Yet his heart raced with the daunting task ahead. "Yeah, I'm ready to dive into this," he replied, but the words felt inadequate. This wasn't just about discussing plans. It was about forging a path that could redefine not only their futures, but the legacy of the ranch itself. As they retreated to her kitchen, the rich aroma of coffee enveloped them. Jack poured a steaming cup and hesitated to take a sip. The comfort of the routine was tempting, but he pushed it aside, reminding himself today was about unveiling his dreams. They soon settled at a table adorned with sketches and notes, remnants of previous brainstorming sessions. "Where do you want to start?" Lily asked, locking eyes with him, her expression inviting yet expectant. He hesitated, decoding the undercurrents of uncertainty swirling beneath the surface. "I want to talk about the community meeting," he began, plunging into the deep end. "What if we frame it as an opportunity for dialogue instead of a stark contrast between tradition and change? We could invite their voices into this process." Lily nodded, clearly enthusiastic about the idea. "That's brilliant. If we can engage them, they might surprise you." Her encouragement scratched at the doubts that loomed like storm clouds. Jack felt a flicker of hope and pushed himself to explore long-buried ideas. They brainstormed for hours, mapping out strategies to interact meaningfully with the community, framing change as a collective journey rather than a unilateral decision. Jack could feel himself evolving in that moment, confronting fears and discovering a sense of leadership he had long thought elusive. But as the conversation reached a zenith of creativity, the dark specter of competition emerged in the back of his mind, reminding him of the challenges ahead. The questions of, "What if I fail?" and "What if they resist?" loomed large. Yet he was learning to push back against those questions, drawing strength from the budding partnership he found with Lily. As they wrapped up, emotions flared within him like wildfire. Was he truly ready to face the community? Would they see his vision as a betrayal or a beacon of hope? With each passing moment, the weight of his decisions settled deeper into his bones. "Let's go for it," he declared with newfound conviction. But even as he spoke, he felt the undercurrent of apprehension. Doubt still lingered, but there was potential for unparalleled growth and change nestled within them. He looked at Lily, her eyes shining with determination. "Together, we'll redefine what this ranch can be." However, even as determination surged, the figure from afar watched with nighted glee, plotting unforeseen disruptions, ready to challenge everything Jack had begun to build. The next move in this high-stakes game was still to unfold, and Jack would discover just how strong his newfound resolve truly was. As Jack drove away from Lily's ranch, the weight of their conversation spun through his mind like a restless breeze. There was a tangible energy in the air, a tether to purpose he'd not felt before, but shadows still danced at the edge of his resolve. What if his every plan was met with opposition? What if he misjudged the sentiment of those who had called this land home for generations? Each question was a thorn tugging against the edges of his newfound determination. He leaned back in his seat, allowing the rhythmic hum of his truck's engine to drown out the internal noise. Despite the doubts, his mind flickered with pictures of what the ranch could become, a thriving place of innovation, community engagement, and resilience. He envisioned guests arriving, overwhelmed by the colors of the fields and the vibrancy of connection that could flourish. The ranch had the potential to be more than a mere backdrop to their lives. It could be a catalyst for change. Arriving back at his modest home, a familiar comfort settled over him. It was unremarkable and cluttered, a contrast to the vibrant ideas swimming in his head. He stepped inside, and the clutter reminded him of the tangled thoughts he was grappling with. Needing clarity, he pulled out a notepad and began to jot down notes. Adrenaline surged as he distilled his thoughts into concrete plans, refreshing the ink on the page with every stroke. He sketched out ideas not just for their presentation, but also for how to keep the community engaged long after the first meeting. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a twilight glow over his living room, a nagging doubt began to creep back in. He worried Lily would see right through him. She radiated confidence and creativity that he admired, but felt he lacked. What if he let her down? What if he fell short of the vision they had begun to mold together? The thought was a heavy stone, dragging him back into uncertainty. Lying in bed that night, Jack's thoughts remained restless. He replayed every detail of their discussion, each moment that had sparked hope. Reflection turned into anxiety. He was pulled in two directions: the urge to forge ahead and the instinct to retreat back to safety. The hours slipped by until finally sleep claimed him, but visions of what could be haunted his dreams. The following morning, a sense of purpose compelled Jack to rise early. He decided to visit the site where they planned to hold the community meeting. As he stood under the vastness of the sky, staring at the gentle sway of the grass, he began to visualize each person who would step foot on this land. Families, elders, children, their stories intertwined with the soil beneath his boots. Could this vision truly find a home? Suddenly, a loud rustle from a nearby bush startled him, pulling him from his contemplations. A figure emerged, Tom, one of the local ranchers. Jack's stomach dropped at the sight. Tom was a vocal traditionalist, known to resist change at all costs. He approached, wearing a scowl that hinted at confrontation. "Jack," Tom called, his voice gravelly and direct. "What do you think you're doing? You don't belong here with new ideas swirling around." Jack felt his pulse quicken, a mix of defiance and fear. Was he ready for this kind of challenge? The air was thick with anticipation, and the moment had arrived. He could either stand firm in his vision or cower beneath the weight of tradition. How I respond now could define everything, he thought. But what he didn't know about himself was just how far he was willing to stretch for something he believed in. With every nerve ignited, Jack took a breath, preparing to confront a force that could unravel the very tapestry of their plans. What would he say? Would this be the moment of truth that affirmed or dismantled his resolve? Jack's heart raced as Tom stepped closer, the tension palpable between them. Every instinct urged him to fire back, to defend his vision at all costs. Yet, as their eyes locked, Jack sensed something in Tom's stance, a deep-rooted fear masked as defiance. Here was a man whose very identity was bound to the land, whose traditions had been cultivated over decades. Jack took another steadying breath, grounding himself. "I'm not here to take anything away from you, Tom," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "I see potential here for all of us. This ranch has been a cornerstone for generations, and it can be again, just with a new purpose." Tom's frown deepened, doubt washing over his features. "Your new purpose could tear this community apart. We've done things a certain way for years, and there's a reason for that." Jack felt the echoes of Tom's words resonate within him. Every step forward felt like a break from the familiar, yet it had to be taken. Maybe it's time for a change then, not a replacement of what's been done, but an evolution. We can embrace what makes us who we are while adapting to the future. When Tom crossed his arms, Jack knew he wasn't done yet. He decided to shift tactics, wanting to speak directly to Tom's experiences. "You and your family have poured your heart into this ranch for generations. There's wisdom in that tradition, but I believe it can coexist with new ideas rather than clash with them." Silence hung heavy between them, both men absorbing the weight of Jack's words. He could see the subtle twitches in Tom's jaw, the flicker of curiosity beneath the skepticism. Jack's passion ignited further, and he pressed on. "Imagine hosting workshops that not only preserve but celebrate the heritage of ranching while introducing innovative practices. This isn't about my way or the highway. It's about enriching what we already have." The wind rustled through the grasses, embodying the change Jack hoped for. As he spoke, he recalled Lily's encouragement, her unwavering confidence radiating like a beacon. It spurred him on, grounding him much like the ranch itself. We can cater to an evolving audience while staying true to your roots. This land can remain a sanctuary, but also thrive in today's world. What do you really know about ranching? Tom shot back, maintaining his defensive posture. You come here with ideas, but do you understand the struggles, the risks? This place is not just land, it's livelihood. Feeling the heartbeat of his own convictions pulse more vibrantly, Jack dared to step closer, still respecting Tom's space. No, I don't know the struggles firsthand, but I'm here to learn. I'm here to listen, to seek your guidance and insights. I want to ensure that whatever plan we create doesn't just uplift a few, but uplifts all of us. Jack's heart thudded wildly, realizing the gravity of what he was doing. For the first time, he was opening himself entirely, vulnerable yet fortified by his determination. His voice softened. I want us to build something together, something that honors the past while preparing us for tomorrow. The moment stretched, a bridge forming between their opposing views. Tom's expression shifted. Doubt still lingered, but contemplation took hold. Jack hoped this could be the beginning of a dialogue, the first tentative steps toward understanding. As silence enveloped them again, Jack wondered if he had reached an impasse or merely scratched the surface of an opportunity. Either way, Tom's next response would likely dictate the course of their progress. But just as Tom opened his mouth, the shrill ringing of Jack's phone broke the tension, pulling both of their gazes. The screen flashed Lily's name. His stomach twisted with urgency. What could she possibly want at this moment? Jack's heart quickened as he wondered if this call could offer the support he needed to navigate Tom's resistance or deepen his uncertainty altogether. His decisions were already in motion. Would this phone call elevate his resolve or plunge him back into doubt? Inhaling deeply, Jack answered, preparing for whatever storm lay ahead. Jack, Lily's voice came through the line, fractured with an urgency that cut straight to his core. I had to call. Are you okay? The worry in her tone tugged at something deep in him. I'm fine, just trying to convince Tom to see the potential for change. Change can be tough for some people, she suggested, her empathy palpable even over the phone. Jack leaned against the fence post, feeling the rough wood beneath his fingers. I know, but I have to find common ground. I can't let this opportunity slip away. As he spoke, he felt the weight of Lily's support behind him. You're doing the right thing by reaching out, by standing your ground with confidence. Just remember, this isn't just about ideas, it's about people. Yes, but how can I get Tom? How can I get anyone to see that? The frustration bubbled up, threatening to overtake him. Sometimes it's about showing rather than telling. Lead by example. You know the responsibility you carry. Keep that at the forefront. Jack nodded, though Lily couldn't see it. I appreciate that. I feel like I'm on a tightrope, and one misstep could send me crashing down. As he hung up, renewed determination surged through him. He needed to embody the very evolution he sought for the ranch. Perhaps it wasn't enough just to propose change. He needed to exemplify it. Pushing away from the fence, Jack understood he had to start by making tangible adjustments in his own approach, not merely words, but actions that could resonate with Tom and the others in the community. If he could find a way to blend the old with the new, it could create a bridge rather than a divide. With the sun dipping low on the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched across the land, Jack strode purposefully toward the main barn, where he kept several tools and machines critical for the ranch's operations. He recalled conversations with Lily where they brainstormed modernizing aspects of the ranch while retaining its essence. The combination of grit and growth could be powerful. It was time to show, rather than just tell. He rummaged through his gear, considering how to integrate some modern ranching techniques with the traditional methods still cherished by Tom. What if I started small, experiment with just a section of the land and document the process, Jack muttered to himself. Invite Tom to see, to be part of the demonstration, let him be the guide. As he descended into thoughts of schedules, methods, and logistics, a thrill coursed through him. This tangible undertaking transformed the heaviness of his predicament into invigorating challenge. A challenge to not just advocate for change, but to embody it. But the excitement was nearly eclipsed by a shadow of doubt. What if Tom sees my efforts as an intrusion rather than collaboration? He wrestled with the implications of his decision. What if his experiments didn't capture Tom's approval? How could he showcase change without undermining tradition? His heart quickened as the question spiraled in his mind. Though unsure of the future, there was one certainty. He would no longer passively await an understanding. He would actively shape it. Jack gathered his tools with a newfound sense of purpose, carving out the beginning of what he hoped might transform not only the land, but his entire vision. Yet unease lingered that in trying to harness the future, he might inadvertently erase the very essence of what made the ranch special. And just as his resolve solidified, the sun began to set on the horizon, casting hues of crimson and orange over the ranch, a symbol of endings and beginnings. The patterns of shadows danced across familiar grounds, both inviting and intimidating. "Tomorrow," he whispered, determination threading through his voice, "I'll take the first step." But as he turned to head back inside, he caught a glimpse of Tom watching from a distance, the man's expression unreadable. Jack's stomach twisted once more. Would he grip the new opportunity he'd laid out, or recoil from the risks it posed? The next morning would unravel everything, his plan, his courage, and the potential for change that hung by a thread over an uncertain tomorrow. The path was set, yet the destination remained shrouded in chaos. As dawn broke over the ranch, the suffusing light ignited a confidence within Jack that had been absent for far too long. He stood outside his home, taking a moment to soak in the clarity of the new day, the air crisp and invigorating. Today was the day he would initiate the changes he envisioned, transforming not just the ranch, but also his role within the community. Determined, Jack set to work. He meticulously organized each tool, gathering his planting and farming equipment, creating a strategic approach that would facilitate the innovation he had conceived. Drawing upon his ancestors' teachings interwoven with modern farming practices, he charted a plan, resolute in demonstrating that change could exist alongside the legacy of hard work and dedication. He recalled Lily's words about leading by example. It struck a chord deep within him. This process wasn't only about transforming land and livelihood, it was also about creating dialogue, inviting discussion. If he could illustrate the potential for growth through action, perhaps even Tom would begin to see the merits. With a sense of renewed purpose, Jack ventured towards the barn, feeling a distinct resonance with every purposeful stride. He had decided to start with a small plot of land, his grandfather's old grazing field. Today, he intended to experiment with modern soil techniques and sustainable practices, demonstrating their effectiveness to Tom and other local ranchers. He spent hours working on the plot, mixing traditional aspects of ranching with intriguing modern alternatives. As the sun arched overhead, sweat trickled down his back, but he welcomed it, embracing the physical labor as a rite of passage. Each moment not only solidified his resolve, but also anchored his connection to the land he loved. As the sun began to dip, casting a warm glow across the horizon, Jack felt a satisfaction bloom within him. He stepped back to survey his efforts, a blend of old and new, rooted yet dynamic, like a bridge inviting others to cross. This transformation symbolized more than just agricultural change. It signified his growth as a leader, a rancher willing to confront doubts and embrace vulnerability. With his plan laid out, Jack felt an unexpected flicker of excitement overshadow his lingering apprehension about Tom's impending reaction. To think that the very space that once felt constricting now represented possibility, this shift in perception was nothing short of revolutionary. Later that evening, he returned to the house, the dim light of dusk casting soft shadows. His mind buzzed with anticipation for the upcoming community meeting. He would extend an invitation not only to Tom, but to all local ranchers, sharing his findings and collaborating on a common future. Still, as he prepared dinner that night, a knot of anxiety coiled in his stomach. Was he ready to confront their skepticism? Would they consider him an outsider, a faceless figure pushing for unjustified change? The tumult of thoughts washed over him in waves until the gentle chime of his phone brought him back to focus. It was Lily, her voice laced with enthusiasm, and each word she articulated became a balm to his uncertain heart. "Jack, I'm proud of you. Your preparations for the meeting sound incredible. You are setting the stage for real dialogue." "You think so?" he asked, determination punctuating each syllable. "Absolutely. Know that every great shift begins with risk. By seizing this opportunity, you raise the possibility for dialogue and cooperation, not just critique. That night, Jack lay in bed, excitement reigning over his fears. Despite the unknowns that lay ahead, he felt ready. He had grappled with his internal contradictions and emerged with clarity. Tomorrow, he would showcase the ranch's potential, both his and the community's. The next morning brought a tempest of emotions. As Jack arrived at the venue, a gathering space adorned with hay bales and the scent of freshly brewed coffee, he surveyed the faces that held the power to influence the journey ahead. Among them stood Tom, his expression inscrutable, a vivid reminder of the stakes at play. Jack rallied his voice, steady and authentic. "I invite you all to look beyond your first impressions and engage with what we can create together." As he detailed his vision, he felt the resilience of his ancestors urging him forward. The words flowed with newfound conviction. The ranch represented everyone's legacy, painstakingly crafted through years of toil and love. If they could meld their traditions with innovative practices, they might not only preserve the ranch, but invigorate it. When he turned to Tom, the tension had shifted. "This isn't about abandoning what we hold dear," he asserted. "It's about respecting the past while simultaneously preparing for a sustainable and prosperous future." With every eye on him, Jack felt a surge of hope burgeoning like wildflowers breaking through asphalt. He had opened a door to possibility, and as he spoke to the crowd, he also began to glimpse the willingness in Tom's eyes to engage, just the glimmer of understanding he hoped for. As the meeting concluded, applause erupted, resonating like hymns in a great hall. With that affirmation, Jack had achieved not just recognition, but validation of his transformation. With each person who approached him in excitement, he felt the weight lift, the weight of judgment, expectation, and fear dissipating into the bonds of community spirit. Later that evening, Jack stood alone beneath the vast Montana sky. The darkness enveloped him, yet he felt illuminated by something greater, a synthesis of past and present, the joy of commitment to progress and family. Aligned with purpose, he had accomplished more than he ever anticipated. Jack Miller had funneled his inherited legacy into a new dawn. Confidence surged through him, a newfound calm intermingling with hope. He was no longer just a rancher. He was a pioneer, a steward of evolution, a confident partner in dialogue, poised for the future. This journey had irrevocably reshaped him. As he gazed at the stars sparkling above, he vowed to nurture this path of evolution, both for himself and for the land he cherished. And as he turned in for the night, an overwhelming sense of gratitude washed over him. Life, with its dual narratives of struggle and growth, had presented him with a profound opportunity, and he embraced it wholeheartedly. To you watching this, Jack's story is a testament to the power of change, collaboration, and resilience. It's a call to all of us to embrace uncertainty, so we don't miss our opportunities. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative journey and how it reflects on your life. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Every act of sharing fuels hope and transformation. Now is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.